Welcome and thank you for joining me for this Wheel and Anchor webinar featuring one of our most prestigious and hotly anticipated trips, which is, of course, our African Rail Odyssey. This trip covers half the African continent on one of, if not the most luxurious train journeys in the world. Now, on this webinar, I'm going to explain what this trip is all about, and I'm going to share some images and video clips from our 2024 journey that will give you a sense of this experience. But let me first address who this trip is for, because I'll be honest, it's not for everyone. That's partly because of the price tag, which is in line with other top of the line travel experiences around the world, but it's also because this trip crosses through a part of the world that is remote, wild, and sometimes a bit hard to look at when you consider the everyday challenges that the people who live here face every day. And these pass by right outside your window. It's for those who view Africa as more than just safari reserves and fancy lodges with animals right outside the door. And no doubt these are part of the experience. But there is so much more to the continent than we can even begin to understand. And this trip gives those who are curious about its history, its colonization, and then its independence, as well as its future, all while watching it pass by, feeling the clickety clack of the rails underneath, some of which are still the original ones. If the idea of such an experience intrigues you, and if you're ready to learn about why this perhaps more than any of our trips is truly a once in a lifetime experience, then listen on and I'll share why this is one of the most memorable journeys that I and some of your fellow members have ever taken. Before we get into the details, I want to give you an overview of what this webinar will contain. First of all, I'm going to give you an introduction to Wheel and Anchor and why we are different than any other travel company. From there, I'll take you to the map and explain where this journey takes us. And right after that, I'll talk about some of the highlights that this trip contains and some personal accounts from the last one. If you've joined us for a webinar before, you can jump ahead to the map or the day-by-day highlights by using the YouTube chapters, which you'll find immediately under this video or in the description. But if this is your first time seeing one of our webinars, then I invite you to stay with me through the next few slides so you can get to know who we are and why we travel the way we do. First, let me share what makes Wheel and Anchor different, because we're not just another tour company. In fact, we're a community of Canadian travels united by a shared philosophy, which is that the most meaningful experiences happen when you take a little more time to go beyond the surface of a destination, and just as importantly, when you share those moments with like-minded people. Now, let me be clear, you could buy this tour elsewhere. It's not like we're the only ones offering it. But you're not only buying a trip, but rather the experience of sharing this journey with other of our Wheel and Anchor members, which makes it quite different than just going on your own, not knowing who your travel companions are going to be. There's something uniquely comforting about exploring the world with fellow Canadians, people who just get you, who speak your language literally and figuratively, and who often become lifelong friends rather than just fellow travelers you'll probably never see again. Our travel philosophy centers on two fundamental goals that transform how you experience the world. Those are being well traveled and well connected. So, first, let me talk a bit about what well traveled means, because it's not a race to collect passport stamps. It's more of a practice of presence. Sometimes I like to call it the curious wanderer's mindset, slowing down, tuning in, and allowing a place to reveal itself on its own terms. When you savor the rhythms, stories, and everyday rituals around you, a journey shifts from sightseeing to insight, becoming an experience that shapes you long after you've returned home. If you think about your truly well-traveled friends, and that may include you, those are the ones with the most unique stories and experiences, not to mention learnings from their travels around the world. They've done trips like this one. Now it's your turn, which is not to say that you can't invite them along. Now, secondly, we're about being well connected. And this is where Wheel and Anchor truly differs from conventional tour companies, because connection isn't just about your fellow travelers. It's about how travel deepens your relationship with the world. We create opportunities for you to get hands-on with art or crafts, or cooking, often learning from artisans who have kept centuries old techniques alive, and to point out the places where you can actually interact with locals and have the kinds of conversations you might have with folks back home on the other side of town. On trips like this, the connection might be with the crew on the train or the Shona craftsmen in Zimbabwe. These are the things that really make the memories. And all together, these elements create what we call the wheel and anchor transformation. You return home carrying more than souvenirs. You'll have newfound perspectives that enrich your daily life and lasting friendships that continue inspiring you long after your luggage is unpacked. This is travel that changes you. Just want to say a couple more things before we delve into the details of this trip. And I want to tell you a little bit about who we are. Who are the people of Wheel and Anchor beyond our members, of course. So, first of all, my name is Gordon Dreger. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. And as I've mentioned before, I've been working in and around the travel business for the better part of 35 years. I've organized trips for Canadians to just about all parts of the globe. But I couldn't pull off all these promises that I just talked about without an incredible team of people, all of whom are as dedicated to ensuring that we deliver some of the best experiences for our members. Now, the person who's most important for you is our lead trip specialist, which is Paula Sarnik. And she'll see a picture of her here to my right. She's the person, when you drop us a note or give us a call, will most likely be frontline to make sure that your questions get answered and to assist you in joining us if you decide to join us on this or any of our trips. So now it's time to dive into the map and the highlights of this trip. So, looking at the map of the southern part of Africa, our overall trip consists of three components. First of all, our pre trip, and then our main trip, which goes from Dar es Salaam all the way down to Cape Town. And then the final part of our trip, our post trip, which covers a few days in and around this beautiful city. For those of you who opt for our pre trip as a way to settle in for a few days, we'll begin, as I said, on the Spice Island of Zanzibar, which is located just off the coast of the Tanzanian mainland in eastern Africa. After 4 nights here, we cross over to the Tanzanian capital, Dar es Salaam, for 1 night before we embark on our luxurious train for the 5,500-kilometer trip south across the continent. Our train is going to make numerous stops along the way, such as in the largest game reserve on the continent, which is in Tanzania. We'll then pass through the Rift Valley before crossing into northern Zambia and across the plains of Africa. We then pull into Victoria Falls, which is one of the most remarkable waterfalls in the world, where the Zambezi River plunges into a deep chasm. This will be our first overnight off the train before we then continue south through Zimbabwe and then into Botswana. We'll then disembark once again for 2 nights at a game lodge in the Madikwe Reserve in the northern part of South Africa. The next leg of our train journey will have us arrive into Pretoria, the home base of this incredible train and the capital of the country. And from there, we proceed further south with a stop at the Kimberley Diamond Mine, and our last leg crosses the Karoo before descending to Cape Town, which is one of the most picturesque cities, not only on the continent, but in the entire world. Our post trip takes in a few more days in Cape Town with a visit to the Cape of Good Hope, followed by some days in South Africa's renowned Cape Winelands before the journey comes to a close. So let's now dive into the highlights of this trip, starting with our pre-trip in Zanzibar, where I'll share with you a few images and video clips from our previous experience. We begin in Zanzibar, which is a tropical island with centuries of history and some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. The first question you might have is, how the heck do I get to Zanzibar? But the good thing is that the island is well known to European vacationers, and as such, there are numerous one-stop flight connections from major cities in Canada on airlines such as Qatar Airways or Air France KLM and others. It's a bit of a long trip, but I also recommend doing a stopover in Europe or elsewhere to break up the journey. Believe it or not, Zanzibar was once a hub of global trade, overseen by the Sultan of Oman, and it's now part of Tanzania and has its own unique identity. After landing, you'll be driven to the east coast of the island, where we'll stay at a beautiful beachfront resort, and you'll have the next few days to relax and get over the time difference. Walking along the long stretch of white sand beach at low tide, you can find traditional seaweed farmers tending their plots and fishermen setting sail on these dhows like you see here. Or you could head inland to the Jodzani forest, home to the colobus monkey, found nowhere else in the world. You could also join a guided walk to local Bweju village, where narrow paths lead past small shops and shaded homes, and where local projects invite visitors to learn a bit of Swahili cooking or trying basket weaving. Another option is to book lunch at a favorite spot just up the coast, which is about 50 meters from the beach and appropriately called The Rock. During low tide, you can simply walk over, but when the tide is in, small boats shuttle guests the short distance back and forth. All in all, these first days by the sea in Zanzibar are a terrific way to get a head start on a fabulous journey and to meet a few fellow members ahead of the trip. We then leave the beach and head back to the west side of the island to Stone Town, Zanzibar's historic heart and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This is the cultural core of the island. A walking tour of Stone Town begins along Mizingani Road, past the ornate old dispensary and the Omani era old fort. In Forodani Gardens, the evening food stalls are set up daily by the waterfront, and we certainly won't miss the Palace Museum and the Anglican Cathedral, which were built on the former site of the slave market, and where guides will recount the history that shaped the island. One of the many things that makes this small city famous are the ornate carved wooden doors that line the twisting lanes. But another, of course, is that this is the birthplace of Freddie Mercury, and the facade of his birthplace home still draws admirers from around the world. Also, the House of Wonders, once a sultan's palace, while it's under restoration as at the time I'm recording this, is still visible from the outside. Depending on the day, we may finish with a visit to Darajani Market, alive with spice vendors and fresh produce. Our pre-trip will end as we make our way to Dar es Salaam to join those who will fly here directly for the main part of the journey. If a few days on the beach is not your thing, you can opt to fly from Canada to Dar, again with a multitude of connections available via Europe or the Middle East. For those who have been with us on the pre-trip, we'll take the Azam Marine Ferry for the short crossing from Stone Town across the Zanzibar Channel, and then we'll all gather at the hotel to rest up, enjoy a bit of the pool terrace, or perhaps explore some of the city before our rail adventure begins. Our adventure begins as we check in for the train and hand over our luggage directly at the hotel before a short transfer to the station. From the very first moment, the hospitality and attention to detail set this train apart. So, allow me to take a few moments to share with you a few details about this very special train. Welcome aboard Rovos Rail, the pride of Africa. Born from South African entrepreneur Rohan Vos's dream to bring the golden age of rail back to life. On our journey from Dar es Salaam to Cape Town, we're not just covering ground, we're stepping into a tradition of hospitality, which resonates so much with my vision at Wheel and Anchor. Every historic carriage is rebuilt and customized in the Rovos train yard, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Hand polished wood, period details, and an unhurried rhythm set the tone, and that old world service, delivered with genuine warmth by a polished young crew, elevates every minute on board. It's really a boutique hotel in motion where the journey is very much the destination. Right at the back of the train sits the observation car, a favorite perch for many. The adjoining lounge opens to an open air platform, which is a rare treat in luxury rail, where you can feel the breeze and hear the clickety clack of the tracks and watch the wide African sky unfold. It's the social heart of the train as well. Sunrise coffees, golden hour sundowners, and long interrupted views that no single window can match. We then come to the dining cars, and there's typically two, depending on the overall number of guests aboard. Each is a jewel of gleaming teak, vintage lamps, starched linens, and perfectly set silver. These are original carriages that have been meticulously restored to modern comfort while keeping the grace of classic rail travel. And yes, there is mandatory evening attire, which might seem like a bit of a fuss at first, but dressing for dinner is exactly what makes this experience feel so grand. Every meal on board is special, but dinner is an occasion. Multi course menus spotlight the regional flavors and compared with some of the very best of South African wines. Beverages across the whole train are complimentary: wines, spirits, soft drinks, and even specialty coffees, with the only exception being ultra premium imports. And the gentle sway of the rails, the soft clink of crystal, and the low conversation, and you've got fine dining in motion that not only holds its own but provides the perfect complement to the scenery outside. For our wheel and anchor trip, we've reserved the deluxe suites, which are your private sanctuary, and they're remarkably spacious by railroad standards. You can choose double or twin bedding, settle into a cozy lounge nook, and tuck everything away in the generous wardrobes that are provided. There's a writing desk, and individual climate control, as well as a well-stocked minibar also included. It feels less like a cabin and more like a boutique hotel room on rails. Each deluxe suite also includes a fully private ensuite with a proper shower, vanity, and flushing toilet, plus plush towels and quality amenities. It's real comfort at speed. There's good water pressure, hot showers, and complete privacy. So you step off refreshed and ready for the next chapter of Africa, which is happening right outside your window. Part of what makes the Rovos experience so incredible are the staff on board. And let's hear a word from one of the barmen about his experience working with Rovos and looking after their guests.
My name is Tristan Rishibar and I work in the lounge bar. During lunch and dinner service, I am a wine representative in the dining cars. What brings me joy in my job is definitely serving wine. I've got a huge passion when it comes to presenting my wines. We serve some of the best wines in South Africa. Seeing a guest hear about the wine and taste it for the first time, it brings me joy.
Our first morning aboard brings our first safari day deep in Africa's largest protected wildlife area. We begin with an early breakfast, and if you haven't been on safari in Africa before, I mean early. We'll set out just before sunrise by safari vehicles that will pick us up right beside the train. We'll be in Nyerere National Park, once known as the Selous Game Reserve. Covering nearly 30,000 square kilometers, it's one of the largest and wildest parks in Africa. With rivers, plains, and woodlands, it's home to elephants, giraffes, countless bird species, and of course, the king of them all, the lions. After a morning game drive, we return to the train in time for lunch as Rovos begins its dramatic climb through the Udzungwa Mountains, crossing tunnels, viaducts, and steep switchbacks. The rest of the afternoon is for enjoying the views from the lounge or observation car before another elegant dinner on board. We then travel through Tanzania's southern highlands with a possible stop at the junction town of Makambako. After a leisurely breakfast, the train continues through a landscape of grassland, savanna, and forest. Depending on timing, we may stop in at this little town of Makambako. It's a small railway village where travelers sometimes stroll through the local market. This is real small town Africa, and it's fascinating to see how the local life proceeds. Here, we may also top up on fresh water because we must be completely self sufficient as we make our way through these remote parts of the continent. And just like taking a bathroom break, you take every opportunity that you can. Today's real highlight is the scenery itself. As we leave the Rift Valley, the train climbs about 1,500 meters with ever changing views of valleys and mountains. We'll cross into Zambia with border formalities handled on board by our train crew, leaving us free to enjoy all of our delicious meals, tea, and great conversation. We'll then have a full day at leisure on board watching Africa's landscapes unfold from the comfort of our train. We'll be rolling across remote parts of Tanzania and Zambia, and unlike a sea day on a cruise, the views here are ever changing. Villages, forests, and wide open plains pass by just outside our window. It's a time to relax, chat with our fellow travelers, or simply absorb the rhythm of the journey. Meals are served at their usual times, with the dining car, lounge, and observation areas always open for a cup of tea or a conversation, and the smiling train crew is always available to attend to all of our needs. It's a rare opportunity to see regions that few outsiders ever pass through, an unfiltered look at the heart of Africa. Today, we'll get a chance to leave the train for an excursion to the Kundalila Falls, set against Zambia's Mochinga Escarpment. In the morning, we'll drive from the railway station to the falls, where the Kaumbe River cascades nearly 70 meters from the Muchinga escarpment into a clear pool below. The trail down is steep but manageable, and the setting is lush with ferns and vines. For those who wish, the pool offers a chance for a refreshing swim. But beyond the falls, the escarpment marks a continental divide. Eastward waters flow to the Indian Ocean via the Zambezi, while westward streams run toward the Congo and the Atlantic. After time at the falls, we'll return again to the train for lunch and continue on towards Kapiri Moposhi, where the entire train set will be turned on the tracks, ensuring that the observation car is once again at the rear for uninterrupted views as we enjoy dinner. Our train continues south through Zambia today with a possible stop in Lusaka, the nation's capital. As the train lumbers towards the city, we may have time for a brief excursion. You might ask yourself, how is it that we don't actually know whether we'll be stopping? But that's the nature of riding the rails in this part of Africa, where passenger rail services are limited to non-existent. Just like in Canada, freight trains tend to get preferred treatment as they bring precious commodities from the mines here out to the coast and on to the rest of the world. And then, of course, there's the tracks, some of them still being the originals. This is what African rail travel is all about. We'll have a day of travel through Zambia as we head towards the Kafue Valley. Early in the morning, we'll cross the Kafue Railway Bridge, a historic and graceful steel girder bridge almost a half kilometer in length, and it spans the broad Kafue River and its floodplain. It's remarkable to think of what it took to build over a century ago in this remote landscape. Bridges like these are the unsung heroes of sub-Saharan rail, built to carry trains over big water and wetlands so lines could connect towns, mines, and markets across huge distances. As we roll across, we look for fishermen in canoes, cattle grazing on the Kafue Flats, and the flocks of herons that are lifting up from the reeds. This historic crossing anchors the line between Lusaka and Livingstone, tying Zambia into the Southern African rail network. Today marks one of the big highlights of our journey as we arrive at one of Africa's greatest natural wonders, Victoria Falls. First thing in the morning, we approach the Zimbabwean border and the Victoria Falls Bridge. If timing allows, the train will pause so we can step out onto the span before continuing to the station. This is one of the most iconic stops along the Rovos Rail trip from Cape Town to Dar es Salaam. I'm standing on the bridge overlooking Victoria Falls, literally on the border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. The train has stopped here as we've all taken a pause to disembark and take in this incredible spectacle of these very immense waterfalls that are the Zambezi River as it plunges down into the gorge roughly 100 meters below. Shortly after crossing the bridge, we are treated to a musical reception as we check into the historic Victoria Falls Hotel, a landmark built at the start of the 20th century around the same time as the bridge. Here, we'll get to enjoy lunch on the lawn with views of the mist as the staff and crew take care of all of our belongings. In the afternoon, we head to the river for a sunset cruise on the Zambezi. Hippos, elephants, and crocodiles are often spotted along the banks as the light softens over the horizon. Dinner tonight will be back in our hotel in the Livingston Room, the hotel's Edwardian dining hall, where chandeliers, live piano music, and a menu blending European tradition with Zimbabwean ingredients make for a truly memorable evening. After a blissful night in your luxurious room, breakfast will be served on the terrace of the Victoria Falls Hotel with views of the rising spray. The morning is ours to explore the falls at our own pace. Trails through the rainforest lead to multiple viewpoints. The main falls, Devil's Cataract, Horseshoe, and Rainbow, each with a different perspective. The constant spray nourishes an unexpected belt of greenery where the orchids, ferns, and palms thrive beside the cataracts. After lunch back at the hotel, we gather our bags and return to the station. By late afternoon, we rejoin the train as we resume our journey through the African bush. We cross into Botswana today with the Kalahari Basin stretching out around us. After breakfast, the train will carry us further toward the frontier, and by midday, we'll cross the Tropic of Capricorn, a geographic marker that runs through southern Africa. This region is the eastern edge of the vast Kalahari Basin, a semi arid expanse covering over 900,000 square kilometers. Though it's often referred to as a desert, it receives enough rain to sustain grasses, acacias, and wildlife. The only permanent river here is the Okavango, which fans out into the sands to create a remarkable inland delta teeming with elephants, antelope, and hundreds of bird species. But a visit there is a whole other wheel and anchor experience. Meanwhile, on board, the rhythm continues with lunch, tea, and dinner while border formalities are once again completed without us hardly even noticing. Today marks another important point on our journey as we cross the border into our last country, South Africa. After breakfast, our train crew will wave us goodbye as we depart the train for the next 2 nights. We'll transfer by road to the South African border where we will be escorted across as hastily as possible. We then arrive at the Madikwe Game Reserve. It was established back in 1991 on what was formerly farmland, and Madikwe now protects 750 square kilometers of wilderness and an extraordinary variety of wildlife. The Big Five, African wild dogs, and more than 350 species of birds. We'll arrive in time for lunch at our comfortable lodge with rooms overlooking the savannah or the watering hole, which is often a show in itself. Each day follows the rhythm of the bush. In the late afternoon, we head out in open vehicles for a 3-hour drive, timed for the soft golden light. Evenings are relaxed back at the lodge, casual attire, easy conversation, and dinner without the formality of the train. Before sunrise, we head out once again when the bush is most alive. Predators are on the move, lions returning from the hunt, leopards slipping into cover. And Madikwe is one of the few places in southern Africa with both brown and spotted hyenas. Most days end the same way, enjoying the magnificent sunsets that Africa is so well known for. The train continues towards Pretoria, South Africa's administrative capital with its monuments, gardens, and history. We'll have our breakfast on board as the train crosses the Witwatersrand goldfields, where deposits discovered in 1886 shaped Johannesburg's rise as a hub of the gold trade. After arrival, we'll transfer into Pretoria itself for a guided tour. Highlights of our visit may include the Union buildings, which are set on beautiful terraced gardens. The church square is home to the Palace of Justice and the Voortrekker Monument, a granite landmark commemorating the 19th century settlers. We'll then be treated to yet another highlight with lunch back at Rovos Rail Station. A phenomenal menu will be served right on the platform, and if weather and time are on our side, we'll also join a guided walk of the station itself with a look into the workshops where the carriages are restored and the locomotives are maintained. Our train will then continue southwest as we head into the birthplace of South Africa's diamond industry before crossing into the region known as the Karoo. This morning we arrive in Kimberley, the city that sprang up in the 1870s diamond rush. Thousands of prospectors dug by hand until their claims merged into the vast Big Hole, which is more than 200 meters deep. At the Diamond Mine Museum, exhibits trace the history of the industry with preserved workshops, headframes, and restored buildings from the period. After lunch, our train will continue into the Karoo, a vast semi-desert covering nearly a third of South Africa. Once an inland sea, the Karoo's sandstone and shale layers hold fossil records that helped prove continental drift. The afternoon passes with tea in the lounge or observation cars as the endless horizon rolls past. For our last full day on the train, we'll have a chance to stop near the village of Matthiasfontein for a good long walk to stretch our legs. After breakfast and lunch on board, we'll have the option to disembark at the Whitehall siding and we'll have a 5-kilometer walk into the town itself. The village served as a British base during the Anglo-Boer War, and today it's preserved almost as it was, with the Lord Milner Hotel, the old post office, and a short high street that feels almost frozen in time. Returning back to the train, we'll continue into the Hex River Mountains, passing through 4 tunnels, including one that's over 13 kilometers long. From there, the line descends 750 meters into the Hex River Valley, which is South Africa's most important grape-growing region. For our final night on board and in celebration of this incredible journey across the continent, we'll have a bit of fun as the crew invite all the passengers to a 1920s theme night. It's a lot of fun and laughs as we toast the good memories that we've made over the past 2 weeks aboard. Our epic journey concludes as we arrive into Cape Town. The train's final stretch passes through fertile valleys and vineyards framed by sandstone peaks. We'll have one last lunch in the dining car before we arrive at Cape Town Station, and there we'll bid farewell to the rowboat's crew who have looked after us so well during our journey. After checking into our hotel, the rest of the day will be ours to explore. Cape Town sits between the Atlantic Ocean and the dramatic backdrop of Table Mountain. There's historic neighborhoods like Beau Cap with its Cape Malay heritage, which sit alongside colonial landmarks and the lively V&A waterfront. Dinner will be on our own this evening, a chance to take in the city's renowned culinary scene. For those participating only in our main program, the journey will end here. Breakfast will be served at our hotel, and we'll gather up and bring you to the airport for your flight back home. Of course, you have the option to join us for our optional Cape Town and Stellenbosch extension program, which would, of course, be a fitting end to an already incredible trip. We'll begin our Cape Town extension with a guided look at the city's historic heart. Since we'll be staying at the same boutique hotel, we'll start at a relaxed pace before joining our local guide for a half-day city tour, which will mostly be on foot. Highlights might include the Castle of Good Hope, built back in the 1660s, or City Hall, where Nelson Mandela spoke after his release. There's also the Grand Parade, a square that has been a market, a parade ground, and also a political stage. We'll continue on to the company's garden, which was planted to supply ships and is now home to Parliament and museums. Streets nearby reveal Georgian, Edwardian, and modern architecture side by side. Driving sections of our trip will include District 6, where forced removals under apartheid left a lasting mark on the city. Today we'll ascend Table Mountain and explore Cape Town's colorful Beau Cap district. With our skip the line tickets in hand, we'll take the rotating cable car nearly a kilometer up to Table Mountain's summit. From here, paths link viewpoints over Robben Island, the 12 Apostles, and both the Atlantic and False Bay coasts. Our guide will introduce us to the unique flora of the Cape Floral Kingdom and will point out dassies and small mammals which are often seen around on the rocks. In the afternoon, we'll head back down to visit Beau Cap, which was long home to Cape Malay families. Its painted houses and cobble streets reflect centuries of cultural blending. We'll have a cooking demonstration and lunch in a local home to introduce us to Cape Malay dishes such as samosas, curry, and denningvleis, bringing the city's history to life through food. Next, we'll take in a full-day excursion to the Cape of Good Hope, ending with African penguins at Boulders Beach. We'll set out by driving along Chapman's Peak, a road cut into the cliffs above the Atlantic before reaching the Cape of Good Hope Nature Reserve. There'll be a short walk up to a viewpoint at Cape Point where the two oceans meet and wildlife roams among the fynbos. From there, we'll have a tasty lunch along the way before continuing on to Simonstown and Boulders Beach, where a colony of African penguins lives among granite boulders. Wooden boardwalks bring us close to the birds without disturbing their habitat. We'll depart Cape Town and head inland to the Cape Winelands, and we'll start off with a guided tour of the university town of Stellenbosch. The town is only about an hour and a half drive from the city, and it's South Africa's second oldest European settlement, founded back in 1679. Our walking tour is going to explore the streets which are lined with the Cape Dutch architecture, oak trees that were planted back in the 1700s, as well as some incredible historic churches. At the Stellenbosch Museum, we'll see 4 restored houses that show life across 3 centuries, from the Cape Dutch farmsteads to Victorian townhouses. The afternoon will be at leisure before dinner in a local restaurant where the region's culinary and wine traditions will be on full display. We'll spend our next day tasting wines and exploring the valleys of Stellenbosch and Franschhoek. Viticulture has been central to this region since the 17th century, and today the Cape Winelands produce some internationally recognized wines. We'll travel through Stellenbosch and into Franschhoek, where the French Huguenots settled in the latter part of the 17th century. Vineyards stretch beneath sandstone peaks, and many estates still preserve Cape Dutch manor houses. We'll also enjoy two tastings today, which give us the chance to compare varietals such as Chenin Blanc and Pinotage, two of the classic grapes of the Cape winelands. There'll be a free day to explore Stellenbosch at your own pace before we have our farewell dinner. Stellenbosch is, of course, more than just vineyards. The university's botanical garden offers shaded walks and plant collections, while the Rupert Museum displays modern South African art. Dorp Street, one of the main streets of town, preserves Cape Dutch and Victorian facades, and many of them are filled with quaint shops and cafes. For those who wish to sample a bit more of the region's famous wine, estates like Zanzibar are within walking distance. And this evening, we'll convene for our farewell dinner, a final chance to share stories from our journey across Africa and raise a glass together. Our time in Africa now comes to an end, and after breakfast, our private transfers will take us to the airport for our onward flights. Some may continue traveling and others may return home, but we'll all leave with the memory of crossing a continent by rail, from the Indian Ocean to the Cape, with all the friendships formed along the way. I've covered a lot of information over the last 35 minutes or so about this epic journey across Africa. And so, if the idea of joining us on this trip appeals to you, and if you're looking to get some more details, the best way to do that is to visit our website. And there you'll find the link, which is in the description below this video on YouTube, and that will take you directly to the webpage, which will give the details of our next upcoming trip. On that same page, you can also download our detailed trip itinerary, which is a full-color e-brochure, where you'll find all of the trip details, including pricing, terms and conditions, and just about everything else that you need to know. Of course, you're probably not going to want to make up your mind about doing a trip like this without talking to one of our team, and we'd be more than delighted to help. So if you just drop us an email or give us a call, Paula or one of her team will be more than delighted to assist in making sure that you get all of those lingering questions answered and to make sure that this really is a trip for you. But don't just take my word for it. I asked a couple of our members who joined me on this incredible adventure what they thought of the experience.
It was fantastic. I think it fulfilled every wish, every dream we thought we would get in Africa. We saw so much that was different, so much that was amazing. Loved Victoria Falls, loved the safari, the trade. It's a dream come true. It's a bucket list trip for sure.
Absolutely fantastic. A great discovery. Everything on the train is exceptional. It was fun traveling with the group we had because we really did get all along together, and it was a great experience to discover the other side of Africa, actually. The inner Africa, I would call it, and to see all the villages and to look at the people and to just take everything in. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this webinar about this incredible trip through Africa. As I said at the very beginning, I think this is truly one of those once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, and as Sherry just said, it's a bucket list item for many. I'd love to have you join us on this or any of our Wheel and Anchor trips, and if you enjoyed this webinar and would like to learn a little bit more about our upcoming journeys, you can click subscribe and you'll be alerted the next time we publish one. In the meantime, regardless of where you're going, I wish you happy travels.